what's up? Hello, my name is Emma, and today I am finally giving you guys my review of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling. I know it's been a while. I'm sorry. I took so long writing this review. I worked extremely hard on it, harder than I think I've ever worked on any other review, so I hope you guys enjoy it. But if you missed any of my other previous Harry Potter reviews from this past year, you can definitely check every single one out below, and this one completes the set. If you haven't caught on yet, pretty much all these reviews are spoiler filled. If you haven't read Harry Potter, this is not the review for you. I will just say that I think Deathly Hallows is a fantastic conclusion. It is my second favorite Harry Potter book. Up until this reread, it was my favorite, so this is a life-changing moment for me to say. But Deathly Hallows is definitely one of my favorite books of all time. I'm so pleased to have reread it, and I can't wait to discuss it with you. That's it. So bye non-spoiler people. We're gonna jump right in to all of this goodness. So the first thing I want to talk about from Deathly Hallows is Dudley. Now, I absolutely recognize how abusive and terrible Dudley has been to Harry for his entire life up until this book, but I can't say that I'm not pleased to see that there has been some character development and there is a little bit of closure, or at least acceptance, between the two of them. I love how in the very beginning Harry steps on a cup of tea and thinks it's a joke from Dudley, but it ends up being like a kind gesture that Dudley doesn't really know how to express himself. And of course, when Dudley says, "I don't think you're a waste of space," even Harry is like, "That's an I love you" from him. I think it really just fulfills the part of me that wishes that Harry could have had some semblance of family in all of his years in the Dursleys, and I feel like this is like the tiniest bit of what Harry could have had. Obviously, I wish this came up sooner in the books, and I wish that Dudley hadn't done so many terrible things to Harry, but it leaves me really satisfied to know that this is how the story starts. I think the first real big thing that happened in Deathly Hallows was Hedwig's death, because I don't think anyone was expecting a character we've known for 7 books to die so soon into this one. Obviously, when I first read it, and for so many years, it broke me to know that Hedwig had died, because she really was the only constant Harry had in his life that went back with him to the Muggle world and was a part of him in the Wizarding world. And I used to really think that Hedwig dying was kind of just like a cop-out on JK's part, because like obviously you couldn't take a snowy owl with you while you're hunting for the Horcruxes, but I do think her death is more representative of Harry leaving his childhood behind. This is his childhood home that he is never to return to, and along with that comes this companion that he will never see again, and I find that really important. I'm sorry if the glare is bothering you, but I wanted to wear my Harry Potter glasses, okay? This scene with Scrimgeour is always so funny to me. I just love that Scrimgeour is trying very hard to intimidate them into siding with the Ministry and from being like the poster boy against Voldemort and whatnot, but I just love how they keep laughing at him and they're just like making fun of him and not taking it seriously because they have that little respect for him. What I love also about this whole Scrimgeour, Dumbledore's will, the Golden Trio moment and stuff, is that Dumbledore leaves Harry the Snitch knowing that he couldn't open it in front of anyone else because he swallowed the snitch, so the first flesh memory is Harry's lips. I love when I'm reading a book and a seemingly insignificant moment from the very first book comes up in the end. It's one of my favorite parts of being a reader of a long continuous series. I have to think that from book 1, Harry almost swallowing the snitch was just like a humorous way to end that scene, and she realized later that it could be a really clever hiding place, but it was just constructed so well, and this is why I love Harry Potter. It's for moments like this. So Ron and Hermione's relationship does really start to develop in Deathly Hallows. Still, like, there's no like overt verbal recognition of it, but things really do start to deepen. Like, one of the first things I think of when I consider Ron and Hermione's relationship is them falling asleep holding hands at Grimmauld Place that first night on the Horcrux hunt and whatnot. And it is just expressed in the way that Hermione is full of so much despair when Ron has left, and in the way that Ron finds his way back to them through Hermione's voice, saying his name for the first time. I'm getting chills just talking about it, but it really is moments like this where I feel like their relationship has matured and their feelings for each other have really solidified. That's really wonderful to me. I still don't agree with a lot of the way that they treated each other when they were younger, but as adults, I just have so much love for them together. So while we're at Grimmauld Place, this is where Harry, Ron, and Hermione discover that Sirius's brother Regulus is the person who retrieved and switched out the lockets. Every single time I reread the series, I distinctly recognize the diadem in the Room of Requirement in Half-Blood Prince, but I never remember the locket while they're cleaning out Grimmauld Place in Order of the Phoenix. I can never remember it until they mention it. Kreacher's story about the locket always gets to me. As much as I disliked Creature and I feel resentment towards him for the way he treated the characters and what his actions were in the previous books, like, you can't help but feel for this creature who has been abused by wizards. Creature was definitely a character that was created for us to dislike, but I do feel like in Deathly Hallows he does get his redemption arc in his dedication to Regulus, in his efforts to bring down Voldemort. One of my favorite parts is when Harry, Ron, and Hermione are going off to the ministry and he like is ready to have a pie cooked for them when they come home. And then at the end when he's wearing Regulus's locket and he's fighting in the Battle of Hogwarts, like, Creature is definitely a different character to like, but I do feel a soft spot for him after reading the story. So one thing I always forget about while reading, and I hate that I forget about, is that Scrimgeour dies protecting Harry. He dies being tortured because he won't tell Voldemort's followers where Harry is or who he's with, even though he at least knows who Harry is with and who could possibly find him. Despite the fact that Scrimgeour is not a likable character, he does die with an honorable act, and that's something that I can respect. All right, so this is one of those things that I have been waiting years to talk about for this review, and that is that Harry is too cruel to Remus at Grimmauld Place. I will go down with this interpretation of the scene. Listen, I totally understand Harry's resentments towards the idea of fathers abandoning their children because Harry never had the ability to grow up with a father, but I think calling him a coward and whatnot was just taking things way too far for all that Remus has done for Harry. And I can accept that Remus is in the wrong here too. While his insecurities are valid, they are damaging to him in Tonks and they create more problems for him. But just the way that Harry went about it and telling him that he wants to be rebellious just left a really bad taste in my mouth. And I always hate the fact that they never had the chance to like truly reconcile. You know, on Potter Watch, Lupin does say something that makes Harry think that he has forgiven him in the way that he's encouraging Harry, and of course with making Harry Teddy's godfather. Obviously there was no real bad blood between them, so I do think that Remus has forgiven him, and I'd like to think that Harry has forgiven himself, but I wish they had more time together. I just really wish they had more time together. Now, the ministry scene in the books, it's much shorter than I remember because I feel like the movie does a great job at spreading it out and making it feel like a realistic length of time, whereas in the books it's like just one chapter. It's very short, but it's still very exhilarating and fun to read. My favorite part of this whole scene is when Harry, Ron, and Arthur are in the same elevator and Ron almost calls Arthur dad. It's like, how tense can you be? Another thing I forget about every time I reread Deathly Hallows is how much I appreciate the comic relief that Phineas Nigellus brings. It's so subtle, but there are some descriptions that are just so hysterical to me in the way that like he's like eavesdropping on them, and then like he'll start to give away too much information and he'll just quickly retreat back into his office, and it is just so funny and exactly what we need in such an intense, heavy part of the story where they feel like they're really at a loss with the Horcrux hunt. So Ron leaving is a really tough moment in the books because you just feel like everything is breaking apart. And I definitely resented Ron for like the larger part of my teenagehood for making this decision because I thought it was so wrong of him. But I think over the years, and especially with this reread, I've really come to terms with it, and I realized that the importance of this aspect of the story is not him leaving, but it's him making the decision to come back. It is very telling of his character, but I feel like traditionally it's been viewed as a more negative aspect of Ron as opposed to the positive aspect of him looking for them immediately and not giving up and trying to get back as hard as he can. That is what is important to me. So after that, Ron comes back. I'm super pleased. I always love the reconciling moment between him and Harry, and I feel so great that Ron is the person to destroy the locket. I don't think that scene could have happened any other way. And I also especially love the moment when Harry shows Hermione that Ron is back and she just starts attacking him and she's angry at him. Oh my god, it is so funny, but you know, like, you know. The thing I've noticed about these Harry Potter reviews is that I love talking about like little minute details, but when we get to big scenes and plot points, I'm just like, this is great, this is amazing, I love this. So it's not as eloquent. I will say about Godric's Hollow, I love the messages of encouragement on the plaque outside of Harry's house. It is just such a tiny, heartwarming moment that is really significant to me. So in this book, we revealed that Dumbledore was good friends with Gellert Grindelwald, who became one of the world's most notorious dark wizards, and he originally had plans to overthrow Muggles in order to put wizards at the top of society. This is clearly a horrible ideology, and I do think this will forever be a stain on his character that we need to talk about, but I do think I have to side with Hermione on this one. They were just so young, and even though Harry keeps saying they were the same age that we are now, Harry, you're still young too. They were young and brilliant, and I would like to think that Dumbledore's role in this is attributed to his sort of bad god complex, where he feels like wizards have been granted these magical abilities, and he thinks that they have the responsibility to protect them and to do better in the world because they have been given this gift, and not that he wants the power and control that Grindelwald wanted. And the fact is that he has been proven to change. Despite his secrets, despite the actions that I don't agree with, Dumbledore became a fantastic man and an immensely talented wizard, and he spent the larger part of his life working for minorities and trying to create equality in the wizarding world and do good. And I think that is the most important part of his character, not what he tried to do when he was 17. I feel like I don't have much to say about the tale of the three brothers because it's the story, everyone knows the story, but what I love about that scene where they go to see Xenophilius Lovegood is the ending, because Hermione is so damn clever. Hermione isn't just the brightest witch of her age, she is just like an absolute genius for being able to be under the pressure of being captured any second, but also remember that Ron is supposed to be home in bed, and if they saw Ron with them, they would probably send Death Eaters after Ron's family, and that they were probably going to kill Xenophilius Lovegood and or Luna if they didn't see Harry, and so she makes it happen accordingly, and it is just so intelligent and genius, and I love Hermione Granger so much. I genuinely think that is one of the most impressive moments in Harry Potter of all. So we've reached what I have been the most excited to talk about in this review. I have been dying to talk about this for so many years, and I hope some of you can relate. But essentially, one of the things that I like least about Deathly Hallows is how there are so many coincidences that are revealed that it becomes disappointing and oversaturated very, very quickly. Let's start with Godric's Hollow. For 6 books, all we know about it is that is where Harry's family lived, and that is where Voldemort's downfall first came. But within this last book, it is confirmed that Godric's Hollow is the birthplace of Godric Gryffindor. Harry is a Gryffindor. It is the place where the first Snitch was forged, of course, because Harry and his father are Seekers. Dumbledore also lived there, and it has a connection to the Deathly Hallows because one of the 3 brothers in the story is buried there. Is it just me that thinks that is far too much significance placed in one location all at once? Every time I think about it, it is just like so ridiculous to me, and I feel like some of those coincidences definitely could have been trashed. Like, who cares if the first Snitch was forged there? It doesn't matter. But I also want to talk about the Peverell family and its connection to the tale of the 3 brothers and the Deathly Hallows. Now, I can kind of understand Harry making the connection between the mark on Ignotus Peverell's grave, as well as remembering something about the ring and that this symbol is connected to the gaunts from Dumbledore's lessons, right? That's understandable to me. Harry has this miraculous revelation that just because the grave of Ignotus Peverell is in Godric's Hollow and Harry's family is from Godric's Hollow, that they are related. We have no proof that the Peverell family stayed in Godric's Hollow. We have no proof for how long the Potter family has been in Godric's Hollow, but Harry just knows. If you ask me, it's a very long stretch and a very weak conclusion to come to so confidently with so little information. So now that we're forced to accept that Harry is related to Ignotus Peverell, and we know that the Gaunt family is related to the Peverells through the memories that Harry had learned with Dumbledore, this now means that Harry and Voldemort are distantly related. To me, the fact that we're aware of a specific line of ancestry that connects Harry and Voldemort really waters down the idea that Voldemort marked Harry as his equal voluntarily and it had nothing to do with fate. Yes, Voldemort had no idea that they had this connection when he heard the prophecy and chose to mark Harry as his equal, but the fact that they are related makes it so unrealistic to me that Neville ever had a chance of being the chosen one, because he has someone that he's actually related to that fulfills that prophecy. And it's so disappointing to me because one of my absolute favorite things about Harry Potter has always been that Harry wasn't the chosen one by fate, it was because of Voldemort's free will. But with this connection, it just feels so embedded in destiny that it can't possibly be anything else for me. I just feel that a lot of the connections in Deathly Hallows were included for fan pleasing, and that's very disappointing to me because I've always really valued J.K. Rowling's ability to make interesting connections and plot twists, but it was just so oversaturated in Deathly Hallows that every time I'm reading it, it adds another weight of unenjoyment on me because all I can focus on is how many ridiculous connections there are. Side note, Hagrid's support Harry Potter party really warms my heart. Okay, so honestly, when Harry, Ron, and Hermione are caught by the Snatchers after Harry uses Voldemort's name, that is genuinely the most fear I have ever felt in Harry Potter. Oh my god. The only time my fear ever comes close to this is in Goblet of Fire when Harry faces Voldemort for the first time after he has returned. But for some reason, like, this scene induces so much fear in me because, like, I feel like there's no way they can possibly get out of it. Like, I know they get out of it, but it's so scary to think about. Malfoy Manor is another great scene where so much happens, but I particularly love how Draco doesn't sell Harry, Ron, and Hermione out. I mean, like, he knows that it's them. He knows what Ron and Hermione look like and that it's clearly Harry, but he voluntarily decides not to sell them out because I don't necessarily think it's like him being indebted to Harry, but he just wants this regime of Voldemort to be over and he wants to be free, and he doesn't sell them out. And although it probably is a little selfish, I still consider this part of Draco's redemption arc. And another thing that happens at Malfoy Manor is that Wormtail dies. His hand that Voldemort created for him strangles him to death. And I've had a lot of discussions with other Potterheads because for the longest time I thought that Wormtail had killed himself in order to be freed of his debt to Harry after Harry saved his life. But after reading it a couple of times over the last few years, it says that the tool that Voldemort created for his most cowardly servant has turned on him. So I'm assuming that I guess he knew that he had released Harry and like the hand itself tried to kill him and it was involuntary. I'm curious to know other people's perspectives on this because I do know a lot of other people that thought it was suicide, but I think now I lean more towards that this was something that was out of Wormtail's control, and I guess, well, Voldemort maybe like magically programmed it to kill him if he ever thought that he was betraying Voldemort. I don't know, I just think it's a really interesting scene. So we get to Dobby's death. I bawled my eyes out. I bawl my eyes out every time I read this book. What am I saying? It just always gets to me because Dobby truly deserved a life of happiness and freedom, and it was cut so short. You don't really think about how constant Dobby is in the story until you really think about it, where he is in almost every single book offering help to Harry. He tries very badly to save his life in Chamber of Secrets. In Goblet of Fire, he gives Harry the gillyweed so he can survive the second task. In Order of the Phoenix, he tells him where the Room of Requirement is. In Half-Blood Prince, he starts trailing Malfoy to help out Harry. He does so much for Harry, and this was really just like the ultimate sacrifice for the greater good for Harry Potter, and it's so sad. I think everyone can agree with me when I say that Dobby the House Elf is one of the bravest, most wonderful characters in Harry Potter, and he will forever go down as that in Harry Potter history. Gringotts is another scene that it's hard for me to have coherent thoughts about because I just love it so much. Like, I'm reading it, I'm flying through it, it's very exciting to read, there's so much happening, it's well written, I just love it, I love everything. But after that, I always really enjoy the scene where we dive into Voldemort's mind and he has discovered that Harry and the Golden Trio are hunting Horcruxes. I love how it displays his arrogance because he refers to himself as the most powerful wizard in the world and no one could possibly perform the magic that he has to protect these Horcruxes, and no one could be clever enough to discover his secret. And even though Voldemort sets out on checking all of the places to ensure that nobody has touched them, he genuinely doesn't believe that somebody else could have that capability to discover this, and it's just a really interesting moment in his character development. So I want to spend some time talking about Ariana Dumbledore, and I'm so pleased that I made this review in like 2017, 2018, because had I like happened to make this review in 2007, there are so many things we could not talk about. Essentially, we're going to be talking a little bit about information that's revealed in Fantastic Beasts and where to find them. So I'm going to put the movie poster here, and if you don't want to be spoiled by anything, wait until the movie poster goes away. So Ariana Dumbledore has always kind of been like this mysterious secret secret in Harry Potter where we never really knew what happened to her, but we could tell it was something that we didn't have a lot of experience with, though I think a lot of people have pushed it off for so many years as just being she was a child who couldn't control her magic and that resulted in her death. But in the film Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, we are presented with this new concept in the wizarding world called an obscurial. From Harry Potter Wikia, an obscurial is defined as a young wizard or witch who developed a dark parasitical magical force known as an obscurus as a result of their magic being suppressed through psychological or physical abuse. If you need more information on an obscurial or you don't know what it is, it says they may lose control when they reach their emotional and mental breaking point. They release their obscurus that creates a lot of destruction, and it says that most children that are obscurials die before their 10th birthday. And so after this information had come out, there have been so many theories that Ariana Dumbledore is an obscurial. And I 110% agree with this theory. When Harry and Hermione are talking about her for the first time, Hermione says, whatever was wrong with that girl, I don't think she's a squib. That wouldn't be included if she was really a squib. And when the three of them are talking to Aberforth about Ariana, he says things like, it turned her inward and drove her mad, she couldn't control it, she was strange and dangerous, and that they couldn't reveal what she was to the Ministry, otherwise she would be locked up under secret security. The Ministry wouldn't lock up a child who couldn't control their magic or a squib. This is clearly a concept that wasn't introduced in Deathly Hallows, but the groundwork was laid there. And to make things even grander, another one of the theories is that the reason that Grindelwald is interested in obscurials and obscurus in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is that years prior, at the time when Ariana had died, Grindelwald was there and he probably saw what happened to Ariana. He saw the obscurial or the obscurus, and that is what sparked his interest and laid the foundation for all of the events that happen in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. This is as good as confirmed, okay? This isn't even a theory anymore. All of the evidence is so concrete. Thank you for listening. Always love the moment when Harry uses the Cruciatus curse on one of the Carrows and Professor McGonagall is like, Harry, that was foolish. And he was like, he spat at you. Their relationship is one that didn't get much development, but I love it so much. But I also love how much faith in Harry Professor McGonagall has gained throughout the years. Like in book 1, when they're 11 years old, Harry, Ron, and Hermione run to tell Professor McGonagall multiple times that someone is trying to steal the Sorcerer's Stone, and someone was, but she brushed them off every single time. But then you have book 7, where Harry's basically saying, I have to find this ancient magical object that has been lost for centuries, and I don't know where it is or what it looks like, but I'm acting on the orders of a dead man. And Professor McGonagall is just like, So Percy finally reconciles with the rest of his family, and while that's a very heartwarming moment and I love seeing all the Weasleys together again, my favorite part of this is that Ginny uses this as an opportunity to hopefully sneak into the battle. So the Battle of Hogwarts is just another scene that I just find it really difficult to describe. All I can just say is that it's so atmospheric, it's so well written. Every single piece of the Battle of Hogwarts is important and valuable to the story. I love how all of the professors play a different role. Like you have Professor Trelawney throwing crystal balls, you have Professor Sprout using some of the more dangerous plants. I always love the moment where Dementors come and Harry and his friends are just, they're so exhausted, they have no happy memories left in them, and then the rest of the DA comes to save them. It's well written, it's well executed, it is constructed so perfectly that I don't think there's a possible thing missing from the Battle of Hogwarts, and I don't think there is anything lacking. It's just so good. I do love the interactions with the Draco during the Battle of Hogwarts, like when the Fiend Fire is just burning the Room of Requirement and Harry goes back to save Draco and Ron is yelling, if we die for them, Harry, I'll kill you. A super, super underrated scene in the Battle of Hogwarts, I don't know why I've never heard anyone talk about this, is when Harry, Ron, and Hermione are under the invisibility cloak and Draco is like pleading with the Death Eater, and so Harry stuns the Death Eater and Draco is like, who saved me, who saved me? And Ron punches him in the nose. Oh my god. Another great moment is when Harry, Ron, and Hermione are going into the Shrieking Shack and Ron is like, if only we had Crookshanks to press the branch so that we can get in, and it goes all the way full circle to book 1 and Hermione says, are you a wizard or not? That's how you make a reference to your original work. So we've reached Snape's memories and I'm gonna get a little ranty. I don't understand how anyone could find the story of Snape and Lily romantic. Every single time I read the scene in the book, I am physically nauseous. spying on Lily when she's a young child, physically harming her sister because he doesn't like her, telling Lily, you better be in Slytherin so we're together. Not, I'd like you to be in Slytherin or Slytherin is great, you better. Essentially saying, I won't let you think that James Potter is a good person. You're not allowed to think highly of him. And of course, calling Lily a mudblood and joining a supremacy group to eradicate her kind, but like, it's romance. The romanticization of Snape's obsession with Lily is so disturbing to me. I can admit that he's done heroic things in his life. He spent 17 years protecting Harry. He tried to protect Draco's soul. He literally risked his life to bring about the downfall of Voldemort. And those are all heroic, honorable things that he's done that he deserves to be recognized for. That being said, he joined a wizarding supremacy group. He tortured and probably murdered innocent muggles and muggleborns in cold blood. He created and experimented with dark magic for fun, not out of necessity or defense. And though you can say those things were in the past and he hasn't engaged in those behaviors since going over to Team Good, he really only joined Dumbledore as a debt to him. Snape doesn't do Dumbledore's bidding because he thinks it's the right thing to do or it's the thing that he wants to do. It's because he's indebted to Dumbledore for trying to protect Lily. And though you can say those things were in the past and Snape hasn't engaged in those behaviors since joining up with Dumbledore, the only reason he started doing his bidding and was on his side is because he's indebted to Dumbledore. Dumbledore gave his word to try and protect Lily if Snape gave anything, and that's why he's employed by Dumbledore. It's not because he thinks that Dumbledore is doing the right thing. It's not that he cares about Harry, because he makes it very clear in the memories that he does not care about Harry or James or anything that has to do with Lily if it's not Lily. And additionally, he abused his position of power as an educator to psychologically and mentally abuse children that were placed in his care. He used this grudge from his childhood bully as fuel against an innocent child that had never done anything to Snape. So it's not really as if we can say that Snape has changed his bad ways. He's just not murdering people, in my opinion. While he's doing his hero stuff, he's still being an immensely shitty and abusive person, and they don't cancel each other out. Like, this is still happening while he's doing all the good, you know? I'm totally down to recognize his heroic efforts against Voldemort, and I can absolutely admit that he's a fabulously written, complex character, and I don't hold anyone against it for loving him for that reason. But my issue lies in the romanticization of his obsession with Lily that is extremely unhealthy and controlling, and the fact that in this discussion so many times these horrible things that Snape has done and is still doing are canceled out by the very few attempts that he made to do something good because he was forced to. I see Snape as a bad person that has done heroic things, the same way I see Albus Dumbledore as a hero that has done bad things. And as we conclude Snape's memories in The Prince's Tale, it's revealed to us that Harry has essentially been brought up to die for the greater cause. I love the line that he's been raised like a pig for slaughter because it is so true, and I totally agree with Snape on this one as much as I dislike him. I really wish in text this had been made a bigger deal, that Harry was basically raised and learned everything that he had to learn and went through all of the trials that he was faced with in order to die at the right moment. You know, according to Dumbledore, Harry couldn't possibly know all of this until Voldemort had kept Nagini by his side, because that meant that Harry was ready to die, as if that was Dumbledore's decision, and I find that really despicable. And I really like the beginning of the Forest Again chapter because Harry is like coming to terms with all of this. He feels betrayed and he feels angry and scared, and he's making sense of everything that has just been revealed to him, and I think it's a really mature chapter for him. We're pretty much at the end of this review because I feel like there's not a ton more that I could say specifically about the end of the Battle of Hogwarts. I do wish the final battle between Harry and Voldemort happened in private because I'm very uncomfortable with the thought of Harry telling everyone Snape's secret that he's harbored for so many years that Snape absolutely would not have wanted people to know when he was alive. Although I do really love the moment when Harry tells Voldemort to try for some remorse to maybe piece his soul back together so that he can, I don't even know what the result of that would be, but he asks Voldemort to try, and that is so telling of Harry's character, and I love it. And I also love that Voldemort falls with a mundane finality. He dies as a mortal man, and that is so significant to the story. Fuck Warner Brothers for changing that because it is so crucial to the way that Voldemort dies. And the last thing I really want to say is insignificant about content of the books, but I feel like I can't talk about Deathly Hallows without talking about this. So I ended up spoiling Deathly Hallows for myself. It was the day after it came out, and I had been reading it. I pretty much read it in one day, but I spoiled the ending for myself. Do you want to know how I spoiled it for myself if you haven't heard this story yet? Essentially, I was skipping through the book just to see how many pages there are left, and you know, every single time you do that, you're gonna spoil yourself, but I did it anyways because I was young and uninformed. But essentially, as I'm flipping, my eyes center in on 3 words. Do you know what those 3 words for? They were from Peeve's little happy little diddly dance poem thingy about how Voldy's gone moldy. And that's how I knew Voldemort died about halfway through the book, because I read those 3 cursed words. That's the end of my story. So that concludes my Harry Potter review. That concludes this specific review. That concludes my series review of Harry Potter. I can't believe we're done. Oh my goodness. Definitely leave all your thoughts about Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows down below. If you haven't watched them yet, I do have reviews for the rest of the series, including Cursed Child, so all of those are linked below. But I have just had the best time reading Harry Potter last year, and I have had so much fun creating these reviews and to talk about it with you guys, and I'm so sad it's over, but I really had a great time. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!